few locusts trudge along the wall of the trap. The rest are piled in a heap in the corner, dead. No phasmid anywhere. Poor things.
Yes, what is it? Ah, very good. Let's see what you have. Interesting. An Esterhaus EH4, heavily customized. This is an advanced model, highly capable. I'll need to replace the frequency dial, but it should certainly work for our purposes.
She's impressed by your resourcefulness as much as by the equipment itself.
I believe that means we're ready to get started. I should warn you, once we begin setting up this antenna, we'll need to see the whole process through. There won't be any second chances, any do-overs. You understand? So if there's anything you'd like to get in order before we depart, I suggest you do it now. That's up to you. At a minimum, I would make sure you are physically and mentally prepared for an intense and difficult process. Once we begin, there can be no interruptions.
At the very least, you should make sure you're wearing a good pair of gloves.
Radio engineers typically carry overpriced solvent sprays to clean the antenna connections. But in a pinch, some common ammonia works just fine. Finally, there's the question of stimulants. Some people prefer to keep legal amphetamines on hand to help with their work. I'm not one of them, but they do exist. It is possible that technical fields attract a certain kind of personality. I haven't given it much thought. Ah, yes. I wasn't sure what to do about that, but then I discovered an abandoned power source down by the edge of the bay. Oh, yes. I did notice that it was covered in police livery. Then you already know that the carriage itself is irreparable, but the rear-mounted engine seems to be in fine working order. My intention is to run a power cable from the engine up to the antenna. It won't last forever, but it should give us enough time to establish a connection with Coalition warship Archer. That's fine. Return to me when you're ready to go.
Our tenant, the policeman. I hope the waves don't keep you up at night. What can I help you with?
The sea's gonna calm down soon, I can feel it. The wind is turning southeast. What's on your mind, officer?
Why does she care about the waves so much?
What is it with waves and fishermen? We need to be out there with them, fishing, making a living. So I asked them to accommodate me. But until that happens, I can try to assist you the best I can. So, what will it be, officer? Oh, that's good to know, I guess. Why is it in the sea? This calls for a funeral, if you ask me. Aye. Feels deserved, don't you think? Falling in the line of duty like that and all? Why odd? Our things are a part of our life world. They're made with our human sweat and they share human history. We should care about them as we care about humans. To some extent, at least.
Life world? Someone's been reading up on last century Gotvaldian philosophers. Play it cool now.
Oh yeah? You won't even be able to get it out of the water before early June. And where are you going to bury it? Who to invite? What music to play at the wake? Take it from someone who's been through a few funerals. It's easiest to just leave them there and let nature take care of it.
That's all we have time for right now anyway. Come back here in June and see how you feel about it then. It's not like it's going anywhere. Yes, that is a pity. But for now, let's focus on the things we do get to do. Like the murder investigation, for example.
You like the Kupri funeral idea? over there, in the corner. Not just any pinball machine. This is the pinnacle of pinball. Cornelius Gordy and the Mountain Goats. It's lit. You can't wait to get your hands on it.
The pinball machine. Gordy's Goats. A classic. A little.
Feels like a lot. Too much to play it again.
Ah, great.
Cornelius Gordy and the Mountain Goats reads the golden lettering on top of the back box. There's a small column of text underneath. The machine is coin-operated. Get the game on, Fingerboy. Those flippers are ready. Above the painting of a mustached man climbing a hill, a column reads, inspired by the legend of Cornelius Gordy, taken on the world's tallest peak, Corpus Muindi. The Mesk legend holds that when the nation is in danger, heroic Gordy shall return and save his people. The theme of the game is to explore Gordy's climb through the perspective of goats and to ascend to the top of the mountain in a time of trouble. The peak of the mountain is at the top of the playfield. All the balls have small goat icons on them and represent the goats as they race up and down the mountain. Areas around the playfield represent Gordy's climb, places he was said to have camped, which the goats can discover. Get them to the summit. Indeed, think of them as balls. It takes a while to get into a rhythm, but pretty soon you're able to keep 3 goat-faced balls in play with relative ease. Go, go, Fingerboy.
I feel sorry for the goats. If they only knew the kind of guy old Cornelius really was. The kind of a guy who uses the word savages a lot when recounting his travels. A masked nationalist. An avid huntsman too. He was often photographed in his dining hall, surrounded by wall-mounted hunting trophies from every continent. He also hit his wife and kids. Other people's kids too. Sometimes pets. Hateful little man.
But you seem to be having fun.
Your game is definitely improving. The jolly goats are flying all over the board, and although a few plummet to their deaths, you're never left with less than 3. Suddenly, a special passage leading to the summit slides open at the top of the board. This is where the balls need to go. Maneuvering a goat ball into a position for a perfect hit isn't easy. More fall to their deaths. But finally, the opportunity presents itself. One of them gets through. Tiny hammer shatters something inside the machine. Something glass. The words "Pale Rupture" light up on the speaker panel, and the machine starts filling with a thick, milky fog. Something's happening.
Congratulations. This is where the game ends. It's a cheap way of getting more money out of the players. A stupid nihilistic finale.
There's so much fog, you can barely see anything. Some is actually leaking out of the machine, and one by one, your goats start slipping, disappearing into the milky nothingness. Lucky goats. The fog looks soft and inviting. This can be navigated. The balls leave almost imperceptible disruptions in the fog. Use them to calculate where they hit next. You're down to your last goat, going mostly by sound. Eyes are useless at this point, but that goat is something special. 5 times you snatch him back from the jaws of death.
I am. I've seen it before. Played it too. You will eventually make a mistake, and then it's all over.
If you can't even see it. The last goat plummets into the fog with almost suicidal glee. It killed itself to spite you. There goes nothing, finger boy. The machine is dead and silent. It needs serious maintenance before anyone can play again.
Yes? Me? I don't see how my life is pertinent to the investigation. That's a fair point. All right, for the good of the investigation, what do you want to know? That's correct.
You feel a slight urge to put the lieutenant down for this, but you can't quite muster enough testosterone.
Are they? They are mostly just cumbersome. What? These? It's just seasonal clothing. Where is this going? Interesting. I think it's called the brain.
It's no mere brain.
Okay, Art Cup. I do not harbor a sentiment for revolutionary air brigades in particular. Okay, I wanted to become an aerostatic pilot. Then I turned 10 and realized we no longer have an air force. Of course. Here's my gun and badge. They'll put me in the chaise for this. But it feels good to have it off my chest.
The revolutionary must have added a little luster to it for a 10-year-old Kitsuragi. He will never admit it, though.
Agreed. Was there anything else? I see this from a purely tactical standpoint, of course.
It is not from a purely tactical standpoint. We are not ruling out that the lieutenant had a little rebel phase in that past of his.
Good. No.
Your brain sends the signal to your lips, but they refuse the order. Something is paralyzing them. You're pretty sure it has something to do with the lieutenant's eyebrow. The eyebrow is exercising psionic control over you. It's like you're locked down.
Something the matter, detective?
This guy's got authority off the charts. With just the flick of his eyebrow, he's able to make you his thrall. Nothing. You better hope he doesn't abuse his authority. There's a lot of it. If the lieutenant were an evil man, who knows what sort of havoc he could wreak. Fortunately, he is a committed officer of the RCM. He'll only use his powers for the good of the investigation. The lieutenant relaxes his eyebrow, and you seem to regain control of yourself.
What do you mean? I have no idea what you're talking about.
The lieutenant's conceptualization skills must be rather rudimentary. The lieutenant is a police officer of the old school. His concerns are material and extrinsic. But this isn't an old school case.
I can't say that it does, no. When I need to think, I just use my notebook.
The lieutenant produces his small blue notebook and idly thumbs through a few pages. That's where his conversations with himself take place. We all have our different mediums. His is written.
Good. Let's change the subject. Wonderful. What is your takeaway? In Elysium, behind our eyes, like all human beings, Detective, the world is what it is. I'm glad to see you're stable. Keep it that way. Now, was there anything else, or should we get to it?
Six crumbling petals rest on your palm. They're white, a bell-shaped crown.
This is the Insulindian lily, called Maybelle's or Lucille's tears during the Revolution. Girls used to pin these on soldiers before sending them off to battle.
This flower is a spring flower, but it's a bit early for that, isn't it?
The revolutionaries, so the communards and the anarchists. White's their color, but the custom started in the suzerain's army, so it held meaning for the king's men too. It's about girls and boys more than sides. Girls sending off boys who are going to their deaths, then also dying themselves in the ruins from dysentery and consumption. It's a symbol of the civil war. Yes, but not this early, not to my knowledge. It looks dried, preserved. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
The petals feel dry and fragile in your hand. Water flows under the channel bridge. Dark water. You rub your sides for warmth, but there is none. Inland, above the Martinez distributary, the channel that brought wastewater from the silk mills of Jamrock, and then dead bodies during the war. The wrinkled fingers of an old man crush flower petals, then sprinkle them in the stream like white salt. A police badge on which you see the photo of a man. Some seaweed is stuck to the back. Cleaning out the rooms. What if you didn't lose your memory? What if something in Martinez came and stored it all away, for you to slowly open one box at a time, so you can choose which parts to keep? Keep almost none of it. Only the flowers on the windowsill. Only the distant sound of a radio. Lose all the actors, the dark shadows. Leave only the still lifes. The blissful distant wash of waves. If everybody knew, you never did. She'll be coming soon. That is all. There it is again. The scent of apricots with a touch of cinnamon. Smells like the end of some distant summer. The surface of another planet, or some ancient temple. Yes, from the height of antiquity, a long, long time ago, millennia ago, on an island of time you can never return to. The sun sets into the sea, but the water does not boil. Instead, it turns to liquid gold. For a moment, the world's store of precious metals seems to increase dramatically, and you are rich. There is a movement next to you, the shuffle of a small coat, warm like the evening. But when you turn toward it, there's nothing there. Why are you talking to a gum wrapper? Bitter, citrus, sweet. It seems to grow stronger, like a glow, with every breath you take. Whatever petrochemical byproducts they used to create this artificial flavor have bonded tightly to the wrapper, or is that just your memory filling the gaps? Until a blossom of skin and flower petals erupts behind your closed eyes, made of toffee, cream, and distance. You just had to take a dive. Feels so familiar. The bullet is still safely sealed away. Large letters on the front form a title, Wirral. The colorful box is illustrated with bucolic vistas. The cover art also features odd-looking humanoids, some short, some taller, some with pointy ears, others with ephemeral wings. Text underneath the title in smaller typeface reads, 3rd edition, Mega Setting Supplements Module. The side panel adds, a sword and sorcery adventure board game with new maps and miniatures. Mysterious things rattle inside. What could they be? Dice? Plastic miniatures? A fantastical alternate world full of magic and wonder? None of that witless man from Heimdall, fascist dross, hidden behind faux realistic allegory. Wirral is no cliché-ridden apologia for colonial violence. Wirral is pure imagination. Yes, the Wirral setting is known for its complicated system of political alignments. But if you're not into that, you can just hack your way through dungeons in search of loot. That's what most people do. A blurb on the back reads, tired of the tedium and toil of modern life? Escape to Wirral. Leave behind Isolas and nations with their petty squabbles. Discard electricity, magnets, and boring technological widgets. Succumb to a world of high pasternal fantastique. Unleash your imagination and create an adventure of endless possibilities. Discover the terrible secret threatening Wirral. Can your band of adventurers save the world? Exactly. That's the spirit. All you have to do is read an intricate rulebook, study an assortment of maps, unfold the illustrated game board, and start rolling dice. In no time, you could be romping through grasslands with low-level characters, hunted by Iskala riders, or battling unspeakable monsters in endless dungeons fraught with danger and despair, conjuring up forceful magics to aid your quest. Don't forget heated arguments escalate into physical confrontation with your friends. And most importantly, never forget to rage quit if the dice don't go your way. You pry open the box. Inside you find a folded up map, a small booklet, a 24-sided die, and a little plastic figurine. A reprint of a crude hand-drawn map. The top left corner reads, Lands of Wirral. The map features both small villages and mid-sized towns with odd names, in addition to meadows, forests, hills, lakes and seas, also with odd names. It doesn't seem to correspond with anything you've seen thus far. It's not a very helpful map. A quick guide to the magical races of Wirral. Create your own hero, choosing from any of these completely unique and fantastical backgrounds. The options are in order of importance. The Welkin, the Tweog, the humans, the fairy folk, and the pygmies. The Welkin, tall, lithe, and graceful, with long flowing hair and pointy ears. They're known for being powerful magic users, but can also hold their own in a brawn-driven fight. The Welkin come with a variety of exciting sub-races. High Welkin, Forest Welkin, Lake Welkin, and Snow Welkin. But if you're not feeling experimental, a basic Welkin will always do. A grand race of industrious mountain people. They're short, stout, and muscular, and enjoy digging for gold and other precious minerals. They're also well versed in the art of combat, where they prefer to use axes and hammers. The Tweog also come in a few different sub-races. Hill Tweog, Shield Tweog, and Dark Tweog. They're just humans. What else is there to tell? They're average in all stats, and jacks of all trades. A very small race of flying people, known for being mischievous, full of trickery. They often lure people into their magical traps. There are no sub-races for the fairies. The least popular of the Wirral races, the pygmies, are short, rotund, and dim-witted. Pygmies live in small villages made of shoddy wooden dwellings. They spend most of their days tilling the earth and smoking their pipes. There are no sub-races for the pygmies. It's made from some sort of wood and has been decorated with peculiar plant motifs. You don't know much about dice, but this one looks pretty damn fancy. You place the die into your pocket. It's always good to have luck on your side. You see a man in ragged clothes wearing a lopsided hat and wielding some sort of a firearm.
Huh, interesting. A communard. It is not. The communards are not a part of the game setting. I guess someone misplaced it during the packaging process. I have a feeling the figurines are more there to set the scene than anything else.
You pick the figurine up by the base to meet your gaze. The little plastic man stares back at you, his face contorted into a disturbing shout. Then you pocket it. A colorful box with the title Wirral, in bold letters. It's a board game. A small mountain of colorful board game boxes. There are numerous types of games for all ages. A lot of shelf space seems to be taken up by Wirral-related merchandise. An endless variety of source books, lore books, and codices litter the table. The topmost book is titled Welkin Compendium, 2nd edition. There's also a large hardbound tome with intricate cover art, The Hunters of Katawak, Boreal Creature Compendium, and a Pick Your Path adventure gamebook titled Tales of Wirral, Cavern of Velkrag. Books in a board game section? Who wants to read books? A towering mountain of colorful board game boxes and Wirral codices.
Wonderful choice, sir. A wholesome family game. Hello again, esteemed officer, and welcome to Crime, Romance, and Biographies of Famous People.
The mother of humanism stands above you, a precious and complex wax painting on a single pane of glass. A crack runs across the length of her body, her face oval and sad. Why? That does seem to be a problem. Maybe you meant something else? I don't know. What are we thinking of? Part of your mind has gone on to other things already. Only a strange little sadness remains. The mother of humanism towers above you, a wax painting on a cracked pane of glass. The file cabinet stands steady as ever. sliding out a drawer. In your hands, you hold a brand new copy of the game, Suzerainty. It's snugly wrapped in a skin of plastic. The cover features a charming illustration depicting a mass of grinning laborers loading goods onto a ship, while a richly dressed administrator oversees their work. The exact location and time period are left deliberately vague, but it's clearly meant to represent the economic relationship between the Revacholian suzerainty and its many vassals. The box has a nice heft to it. You hear the rattle of individual wooden tokens and feel their weight shifting back and forth. What treasures wait in store for you? Even before you open it, you can tell that this will be a meaty game of grand strategy and complex player interactions. The plastic wrap rips off as easily as a bodice in a tawdry historical romance. There's a hiss as the lid slides off. Inside, you find a thick, full-color rulebook and more than a dozen pouches of various wooden components. Savor that new board game smell. A mix of wood, paper, and ink, all wrapped in the sweet must of cardboard. Welcome to Suzerainty, a game of economic strategy for the whole family. The rulebook is sumptuously illustrated and thick as a Gradian novel. The colorful illustrations depict cheerful workers picking apricots, hauling marble sculptures out of crumbling temples, and harvesting a strange magenta-leafed plant. Everyone is smiling. You begin to suspect there may be a political agenda to this so-called family game. Only one way to find out. The instructions are opaque at first, and introduce many concepts you're not familiar with. Fortunately, there are many diagrams and examples throughout. You soon figure out the basic conceit. Each player represents an administrator for the suzerain of Revachol. Your objective is to increase the suzerain's wealth and renown by accumulating victory points. That's where the suzerain's vassals come in. The game features 4 vassal nations, each one home to an economically important resource. Each turn, the player collects resources from vassals where they've placed workers. They may then rearrange their workers, fulfill contracts for coin and bonuses, or build structures back in Revachol. As you leaf through the pages, your eye catches on a sidebar labeled Advice for Beginners. Remember, there are many paths to victory in Suzerainty, but successful players will find one strategy and commit to it wholeheartedly. Boring, boring, boring. Tear up this rulebook and commit some old-school atrocities. The actual scoring system appears infinitely complex, with a series of tables and appendices required to compute each player's final victory point total. You skip that part for now. You open up a number of pouches containing wooden tokens. There are also several punch boards with other cardboard components that will need to be punched out before you can play. Each cardboard token makes a satisfying tsk as you pop it out. Soon, a neat pile of cardboard coins and counters has accumulated before you.
What? You're not going to offer to let me punch any of them out?
In addition to the worker and building tokens used by each player, there are also several piles of colorful resource tokens, each representing one of the game's 4 principal resources. From the Empire of Sephre, orange apricot tokens from Ilmarat, the ancestral name of Ilmara, grey marble block tokens from the Seminine Islands, white sacks of sugar tokens, and from Supra Muindi and Sarah Maritza, magenta tokens for unprocessed cocaine leaves.
Oh, those are nice.
You hold the open game box before you. The lieutenant looks over the rulebook before he sees something that makes his eyes go wide.
Holy shit. The average playing time for this game is 1 to 6 hours. I'm not sure we can afford to set aside that kind of time for a game.
The suzerainty box is heavy and slightly awkward in your hands. You give it a light shake. What is detective work if not an elaborate game? You need logical inference, attention to detail, the ability to analyze your opponent's motives.
I do feel like my thinking has become somewhat rigid. Maybe a little diversion to keep the mind limber is just what's in order.
See? He's doing the hard work himself. All he needed was a little nudge.
All right, you've convinced me. How do we play?
You explain the basic setup procedures to the lieutenant, who seems to be a quick study. You each take your bag of tokens and counters and unfold the board between you. In the center is the crown of Revachon. Radiating outward are her colorful vessels, each one supplying some raw material desired by the suzerain. Apricots from Safre, archaeological treasures from Ilmarat, sugars from the Seminine Islands, and magenta cocaine from Supra Muindi and Sarah Maritza. There's also a neat little log to keep track of your progress in case you need to put the game away and return to it later. The lieutenant goes first. He draws a contract card and moves several of his workers to the Safre territory of the board, and the others to the Seminine Islands.
All right, detective, your turn.
You have a few options available to you. Will you try to fulfill contracts right away, or rearrange your workers to maximize production on future turns? Remember what the rulebook said. You'll want to choose a strategy early on and stay committed to it. You draw a contract card offering a number of coins in exchange for archaeological treasures. You place all your workers on the Ilmarat territory. On your next turn, you produce 6 units of archaeological treasure and fulfill the contract for a handful of coins.
Not bad, detective.
But not good enough, the lieutenant seems to be saying. As he completes his own contract card, the lieutenant is rewarded with 4 coins and a round wooden token that he places in the center of the board.
That's a market. It's worth 2 victory points. Come on, detective. Don't be a spoilsport. You'll have plenty of chances to earn your own points.
What is that patronizing tone? Someone needs to put the lieutenant in his place.
Points are nothing. They don't exist. They're just an arbitrary convention that games use to reward or punish players for certain behaviors. There are some paranoid types who believe the moral intern keeps detailed score sheets for everyone in the Real Belt, but that's obviously nonsense. Otherwise, no. There are no points, just your actions and the consequences of those actions.
Just like there are no honor points, none whatsoever.
That's just the way it is. Now, I believe it's your turn.
Glancing over the board, you see several possible strategies. Pressing more workers into service would increase your economic output and help you to survive a possible conflict with the lieutenant. Or you could ignore your labor supply and focus on fulfilling contracts for points and resources. Those aren't your only options. You could also show your workers how much you appreciate them by investing some of that wealth in them. After all, they're the ones producing wealth for the suzerain. Well, sure, you can do that. It's just not a terribly effective strategy, but then it's up to you.
That's up to you, detective. But remember, the objective of the game is to earn victory points for the suzerain. You should probably pick one strategy and stick to it. Trying to do a little of everything is usually a bad idea. The workers are just there to produce raw resources. You're not supposed to worry about them too much.
The lieutenant assumes you're playing by the rules as written. But what's the point of playing if you can't make your own choices? Who cares about workers or territories when the real action is in Revachol? You spend your turns fulfilling contracts for sweet coins and one-time bonuses. After several turns, you have a neat pile of cardboard coins and several units of archaeological treasure, which you trade in to build a museum. You place a cylindrical piece of wood on the Revachol section in the middle of the board. It's meant to stand in for a beautifully adorned edifice filled with ancient wonders. This is more or less what happened in real life as well. To this day, if Ilmarans want to see their nation's priceless treasures, they have to visit Revachol, or Gottwald, or Sur-le-Clay.
Well played, Detective. That museum is worth 3 victory points.
Now it's the lieutenant's turn to respond. He moves aggressively onto the Safre territory. Soon, his workers are producing a steady supply of extremely valuable apricots. For several turns, you struggle to respond to the lieutenant's burgeoning apricot empire. Eventually, you relocate the majority of your workers to Supremawindi and Saramaritsa, where they begin producing a bumper crop of cocaine tokens. You draw a new contract card. According to the text, there's an aristocrat willing to trade a large supply of cocaine for a number of coins and access to a rare bonus. Amplified music worth 7 victory points. You know, this isn't unlike the situation the historical Revacholian suzerainty faced in Safre in the middle of the last century. Well, the suzerain was looking for new markets for all the cocaine it was producing, and it settled on Safre. By introducing cocaine into Safre under exclusive contract, the suzerain created an extremely valuable captive market for an extremely addictive product. If you could somehow get the lieutenant's workers addicted to your cocaine, you could not only make them less productive, you would also force the lieutenant to pay you for your cocaine tokens each turn. Yes, you can. It's right there in the rules. Now's your chance. Show the lieutenant what happens when he patronizes you. You've reached a critical strategic juncture. How do you respond to the lieutenant's aggression? It takes several turns, but you slowly begin accumulating the cocaine necessary to complete the contract. When you do, it practically rains cardboard coins on your side. Despite your trash talking, the lieutenant still has a formidable store of coins and resources. The end game is upon you. How will you spend the vast resources you've acquired for the glory of the suzerain? Flipping through the manual, you find the most expensive structure in the game, the Revacholian Victory Column, worth 12 victory points. If you can successfully build it, victory would be all but assured. Alternatively, you could try launching a trade war to crush the lieutenant's economy, or you could blow all that money on a public education system for your worker tokens. The choice is yours. Using the substantial coins and resources you've accumulated from diligently fulfilling contracts and constructing trade routes, you spend your final turns constructing the ultimate structure in the game, the Revacholian Victory Column. With a triumphant flourish, you remove a rectangular token from one of the satchels and place it next to your museum cylinder in the center of the board.
They're nice tokens, yes. Very impressive. Now, let's tally up the scores, shall we?
Computing the final scores is almost a game unto itself. You each spend an inordinate amount of time making stacks of coins, consulting tables, and struggling with basic addition and multiplication. After double, then triple checking your maths, you have your final score. 35 victory points. The suzerain will be extremely pleased.
I've got 26 points. Looks like you won convincingly. Well played, detective. Now let's clean up and get back to work.
You hold the open game box before you.